sustainability and profitability aren't just compatible, they're inseparable.
Launching a product and a brand is a very uncertain thing if you've never done it before. If you haven't done it before, if you haven't gone through launching a product, you don't even know what you're missing. It is jumping off the building hoping you have a parachute. If you're not willing to start with research, one, you're not ready, and two,
Ian Peterman is the founder of Peterman Design Firm, helping visionaries turn ideas into sustainable, successful products and brands. With over 20 years of experience, he's leading the movement for conscious design and a circular economy.
One of the other things that you said that really stood out to me, I find myself having that conversation with clients a lot, is the direction that you're heading, like actually where you want to go, because often we get on paths and we don't have all of the information, and then we're like, wait a minute.
90% of what we did was in the startup world. When you start a first company, you always have higher expectations than what actually happens. I was working 80 to 100 hours a week trying to get it off the ground. We got it up to 6 figures in the first 18 months, but
Welcome to the Purpose Profit Shift, where real stories about bold shifts illuminate how we can create a new economy. I'm your host, Rachel Bernier Green, social entrepreneur, activist, and founder of EJ Consortium, a finance consulting firm designed to help purposeful businesses change the world. Today, I'm joined by Ian Peterman, founder and CEO of Peterman Design Firm, a conscious design studio proving that sustainability and profitability aren't just compatible, they're inseparable. Over 15 years, Ian has helped visionaries and Fortune 500 brands like Nike and HP develop products and brands that restore our planet while driving real business growth. He went from working 80-hour weeks at his first design agency to building a thriving 7-figure firm that operates on a 4-day work week, because he believes that building something meaningful shouldn't cost you your health, your time, or your values. Ian is co-author of Conscious Design, host of the Conscious Design podcast, and a passionate advocate for the new economy we're building together. Ian, welcome to the show.
thanks for having me, Rachel. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, I have been very much looking forward to this conversation. One of the things that struck me first about your story is that you started your first business at age 12 with your brother. And I was also a budding childhood entrepreneur. So tell us about that business and what did that experience teach you about what you wanted to create in the world?
Yeah, I mean, anything at that age is kind of formative, so it really
Right.
it really will make an impact. The way it happened is, I think it was just me and my brother were like, "We wanna make some money, and we wanna have have some pocket change, we wanna buy some cool toys."
That was my motivation as well.
That's your starting motivation, right? And so we kind of our parents helped us a little bit figure out like, okay, what skills do we have? What could we do? And we settled on making embossed and hand colored greeting cards.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so, but we had to go through the whole process. So we found a local store that was willing to let us have some floor space, but they're like, you have to find the rack. Like, we're just giving you this little empty space. You have to figure out how are you going to display your cards? So we kind of got the back end of like, oh, well, this is how you actually have to run a business when
Right.
you're selling. So we found like a used spinning card holder, and did all of we came up with serial numbers and design lists, and then we made a book of examples, and basically
Love
went
it.
to the store like, hey, this is what we can make, which ones do you want? And then we had to manage inventory and work with them and figure out, which ones are selling. Do we pull some off? And of course, it's the kid version of it. There's,
Right.
nothing huge, but still, it was a lot of learning how, when you're a kid, right, you just walk in a store, stuff's magically there. And it's so kind of understanding like there's this supply chain, and there's can you estimate how many cards to make, like especially gift cards, they're seasonal kind of in a way. So figuring that out was definitely a learning experience, and getting getting to see kind of the back end of how does stuff actually work. And so it was a fun experience.
Yeah, and I can imagine you learned so much. It's one thing to read about these things in books, and it's another thing to have that experience, especially like you said, at that foundational age, because then everything that you learn moving forward, you're building from a place of experience that most of your peers, haven't had at that age. And it really shapes how you look at things moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hard to relate that kind of information to other kids, and you're like, I know part
Right.
numbers and tracking and forecasting. These are all big, big words for at the time. So yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately for me, when I was that age starting my first business, I was homeschooled. And so I was surrounded by other kids who were also, following their calling in all kind of crazy, ambitious
You
ways.
were homeschooled as well.
Really?
Yep.
That is small world.
Small,
The
small world.
commonalities that I find with guests on this podcast has really been interesting in ways that I did not expect.
Yes, that happens when you do a podcast.
Yeah. And how long have you been running your podcast?
Oh, we've been running for I want to say 4 years now.
Oh, wow.
So
Congrats. That's
I also have random kind of ways. I just found out I was on another podcast or something, and we both found out we both play violin as a random, like, oh, is that?
yeah.
And he was literally like, oh, I have mine right here.
Oh,
So yeah, it's always fun when you find those little things.
yes. Especially because my early businesses revolved around crafting and design things too.
Okay.
Because, yeah, I was the oldest of six kids. And so I didn't get an allowance. And so the pocket money, yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, well, then I've learned about all of these entrepreneurs. I can do that too.
Nice. We got me beat. I was the oldest of only four, but I have six kids. So
Oh, really? Okay, so you have me beat by far because I only have one kid. Much to
yeah.
his chagrin. It's
Oh
like,
well.
yeah, he's like, Mommy, where is my brother? Like, sir, you don't have one. Yeah, so those are the conversations that I'm having with my teenager these days.
Oh yes,
So
the teenager years. They're
quite interesting. Also, learning experience.
yes. Yes, very
So,
very much a learning experience. And they're all
yeah,
different. If you have another one, it's not going to be the same. Just heads up.
that is one thing that I definitely learned being the oldest of six that you can grow up and, same parents, same house, same upbringing, and just radically different temperaments, personalities.
Oh yes.
Yeah, definitely kept things interesting.
Always. Always.
And so to pivot back to your entrepreneurial journey, you started your first design firm in 2013. So can you talk me through kind of what led you to re-enter entrepreneurship as an adult, and what made you believe that it was time to take that step? And kind of what were your expectations going in when you started that first company?
Yeah. So one of the things I started work when I was 16. I had got a quote unquote real job, internship, and that went really well. And then got laid off in 2008. So I was part of that wave of fun.
Yeah.
And that I kind of started to do a little contracting on the side, but getting laid off, I found myself doing a lot more to keep things going. And so that kind of from that point, I did contracting through my career. So
Okay.
probably spent almost 10 years doing contract on the side. Even if I had a full-time job, I would always do side design work whenever I could. And so after doing that for a while, I'm one of those, I started my degree when I was young, and then I took a long break, and then I finally
Mhm.
finished my degree with basically I graduated with 10 years of work experience. So I was just kind of catching the degree up with what I had already been doing.
Right.
And at the time I'd spent several years at a company doing some really awesome design work. But I had also realized that corporate was not actually for me. There's only so many printers that I can design the same way with
Yeah.
tiny changes. day in and day out. So, kind of learning that about myself, and then combined with knowing that I could always get this freelance work, I decided once my degree was finished, like, okay, it's time. I've always wanted to launch a design firm, but I was kind of waiting for the amount of experience and the right circumstances. And so it just kind of seemed like a good time. And I met a couple people that wanted to also start one. So we ended up having four partners
Okay.
with the design firm. And so that was also kind of a little bit more of it felt more like a little safety net to know that I'm not just jumping by myself. I have
Mhm.
other people who are good designers, marketing to help figure out, because there's no manual on how to start a design agency. There's no, unless you work inside one long enough to actually figure out the real operations. There's working at a firm, which is, you're doing design work. You're not operating.
Running a company.
The behind the scenes, you're not always on the sales calls. You're not seeing everything. So there's a lot to it that just doesn't. Nobody's showing you. They're kind of just like, well, if you want to do it, figure it out.
Right.
And so that's what we did. And that's where, as you mentioned, where I was working 80 to 100 hours a week, trying to get it off the ground. And, I think when you start a first company, like real company like that, I think you always have higher expectations than than what actually happens. So,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be super successful really quickly. Um, and we got it up to six figures in the first 18 months, but with four partners and team, we weren't making very much money. Like, yeah,
Right.
technically, right? We started to hit some good goals, but when you start to split it up to everyone, the pie gets really small very very
Yeah.
quickly. So yeah, that was kind of the start of things.
And so, how long did you end up operating that first design firm? And kind of how did that play out in terms of, it started and you said, okay, maybe we're not making as much money and this is not going, in quite the direction at the velocity that we'd originally hoped. So how did that firm end up playing out with you and your partners?
One of the things that we focused on being at the time was what we called a business in a box. So we
Mm.
focused a lot on helping startups, inventors go, hey, we'll basically do everything for you. We'll do your website, we'll help with your marketing, do social media, advertising. We can do all these things, help you develop the product. And that was good, really good experience, but it's also a very small wallet area for the most
Yeah.
part. And so that's one of the things that we realized is that while it is a very needed service, the scale that you have to hit for that to really be profitable and survivable as a
Hmm.
company offering that service is very high. And we would have had to probably be making $10 million a year to get to the point where we as the partners would have been finally comfortable,
Yeah.
because you can't charge too much. That's kind of like the crux of where where people are at with that. So learning a lot about the market, and then also just after running it, we ran it for 3 years about, and honestly, we just got burned out. It was
Yeah.
We couldn't get high enough, quick enough in our sales to really go, yeah, everyone's happy, everyone's paid enough to be worth continuing. And so we decided to kind of shut down things. Everybody took a little bit of a break, and then we all kind of went off and did our own things. So nobody else
Yeah.
really wanted to run a design agency anymore, except for me. I started my own, but one of them does advertising. One of them is a maker. He just still designs super cool things, but really he makes cool products himself. Kind of became his own startup, and knew what to do. We figured out everything he needed to do. So he was able to leverage that and launch his own product. And um, yeah, the other one I think kind of left design for the for the most part. So it all just, it was a really great learning experience.
Yeah.
Being able to see all the different components that go into, because we had graphic design, we had product design, we had marketing all in one house. And it's very rare that you actually get to see
Yeah.
what are all these other components. And I had done, working for 10 years before I even started that, I had touched basically every part of product development in terms of manufacturing, R&D, testing, engineering, industrial design. All I had touched all of that, but that's still you kind of get stuck into that space. And those people never get to see sales or advertising or marketing or branding. You
Yeah.
just kind of go, well, here's the product. And then the rest of the company, whatever team takes over next, and they just do their thing, and you're on to the next product. You're never all the way through. So being able to get that rounding out my experience was super valuable, just for learning it and being able to relate with projects and clients more.
Yeah. And this is another thing we have in common, valuing this kind of cross-functional approach. My minor in college was actually a program that took business students from the business school and then students from the School of Engineering, and it threw us all together. And one of the classes that we had to take was like a product design class. And
It's
then
awesome.
all of the engineering students had to take business classes, and all of the business students had to take engineering classes, which almost ended me. But the value that that has, that you can, when you're working with clients, even if you're not offering all of those services, that you have that level of insight into how all of the other components work together and what that actually means for them bringing their products to market is a really invaluable perspective to be able to bring to your clients.
Yeah, it's one of those, yeah, the cross. And I love you mentioned that program, because I have found out well after I have my degree that there's actually quite a few schools that have started to offer these
Yeah.
combined. People are finally figuring out. I don't know how long ago you graduated, but I feel like there's now, like talking to people now, because I also have been helping run the IDSA chapter in LA, and so I interface with colleges, and so I've
Okay.
found more and more colleges kind of just in the last 2-3 years where they're like, oh, we just piloted this program where we're combining this business and
I love to
technical.
hear that.
Or I want to say there's even somewhere it's like marketing and business. Right,
Mhm.
they're trying to go, okay, yes, people actually do need to know what else happens
Right.
in the company. Like, yeah, it's not your main job, but I feel like it's part of the breaking the silos down, that we
Yes.
kind of figured out that silos are bad. They always were bad, but
Finally.
finally figured out that we should remove them. And so I think it's great to see that the education side is now picking up on that and going, oh yeah, I guess the
Yeah.
business people should know what's happening behind doors number 1 and 2.
Yeah. It's honestly, I think one of the most powerful skill sets you can have to be able to liaise beyond or between different worlds that don't necessarily understand each other. Yeah. It's,
You got to
yeah.
dip your toe in. You got to experience what's happening, and then you can understand and communicate. That's a great point, right? It's how do you
Right.
actually translate in between those two different worlds is very, very important.
Yeah. Very important. And one of the other things that you said that really stood out to me is that when you were talking about the market that you all focused on with that firm and the scale that you needed to reach based on the constraints around your pricing, and realizing that, you were already burned out and you weren't at that scale, like did was that, like, actually the life that you wanted to live? And I find myself having that conversation with clients a lot because one of the first things we often do with people is work with them on their pricing and the business model and actually, like, play that scenario out in modeling to see, is the direction that you're heading, like, actually where you wanna go? Because often we get on paths and we don't have all of the information, and then we're like, "Wait a minute." But we just keep going because, the momentum's already there. And so we often find people actually like will press pause and say, let's actually reevaluate things more fundamentally before we move forward. So that experience I think is that you shared is a lot more universal than I think most people who are not entrepreneurs would realize off the bat.
Yeah, it's momentum and you feel kind of like locked in. And I feel like that's kind of a
Yeah, that sunk
normal
cost
experience to
fallacy.
go, oh, I have to like also translating that failure, people think of failure as changing direction sometimes. And
Yeah.
that's, however that ends up being in our psyche, it's there sometimes. So whether you're aware of it or not, it's still there. And
That's
I
so
feel kind
true.
of culturally we are in that space, like, oh, you changed your degree. Okay, well you failed. You're
Yeah.
like, well, no, but there's a lot of pressure in that
Yeah.
direction to go, well, you're giving up. And the end, well, not really giving up. I just
Right.
found out that there's a wall and I can't go that way anymore.
Yeah. I think that's so true that it is that is also one of the things about entrepreneurship that we don't historically haven't made space to talk about. I think we're making more space to talk about it now. But like you said, the emotional kind of baggage that goes along with that and how it impacts your psyche, especially because as Americans, we're kind of conditioned from a very young age to tie our identities and our self-worth to our work. And sometimes that's
Yes.
like how much we work or like the type of work that we do. And so like we
And
have
how
all
long
of
you do the
these,
same job.
yeah, right? And so we have all of those things kind of compounding already difficult decisions. And if no one is talking about them, then you end up with a lot of people who just kind of keep going because it's the path of least resistance at a certain point.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of the double threat of you have that, right? And then you also have this overwork culture, right?
Yes.
Where like, as I said, I was working 80 to 100 hours a week and I was making maybe minimum wage.
Yeah,
Like
I've
after
been
my
there.
hours put in, right? So I think at one point I was making less. Um,
Yeah.
so you have this, you shouldn't change careers, you shouldn't change direction, and we'll just grind until
Yes.
there's, and so when you combine those two things together, you're like, well, yes, it's getting more and more terrible, but I'm supposed to be grinding anyway. So this is normal. It's normal to
Right.
burn out. So obviously the path is to just burn out in the same direction for as long as possible. And I think there's those two things combined gets it's not good.
It's not. Especially, yeah, it's asinine, but we continue. And so I love that you brought us back to that because you've been so transparent about those days, working 6 to 7 days a week, you know, 10 plus hour days for, over 3 years. And that during that period, you only took 3 vacations and each of them were less than 5 days. So
Yep.
what was the moment that you realized that something had to fundamentally change? Because, like you said, we've been conditioned for so long to think that that is a badge of honor
Oh,
almost.
yes, very, very much. It was, and I mean, it was. It was because it's when you get into that startup world, and especially I think it compounded because we were working with startups. So
Yeah.
we were in the Kool-Aid, we were drinking the Kool-Aid, we were fading,
Right.
like it was like the Kool-Aid was there. And it was, while we did work with some larger companies, and obviously, that money was great. 90% of what we did was in the startup world. And so there's like no, any kind of like cross reference was
Yeah.
gone. There's no, we were so in that bubble. Honestly, what happened was I met my wife, right? And about
Mm.
3 months before we closed the business. And, what had happened is one of the partners had exited and because he was like, I'm burned out. Yeah. I need out. I'm going to take a vacation. And I think he was the most, like, he had a longer career and was more financially stable than the rest of us were very young comparatively. And so I think he was just like, yeah, I've done this before and I'm out.
Right.
I'm not doing this again. So had that happen. And then meeting my wife, so, her perspective was from the outside. And so she was able to be like, hey, look at all these other people that aren't killing themselves. And they're like, why are you, it's been 3 years. Like that's a really good college try.
Right.
And so, that having kind of that outside perspective suddenly shine some light and go, oh, you're in a bubble and
Yeah.
you don't even know, like you get so deep into it, you don't even know you're in a bubble anymore. This is what I do. This is who to you, what you said about identity. This is who I am. I am a startup owner and I work horrible hours because maybe in 5 to 10 years I'll make it. But if the
Yeah.
signs aren't there at 3 years, you're probably not going. Like I think that's the other thing. It's like if you do it for 3 and you're still not there, maybe reevaluate how you're getting there.
Yeah.
Um,
What did Einstein say about the definition of insanity?
yes, maybe we don't wait 3 years. Maybe that's a little bit too long. You can do it sooner. But, also working in that startup world, everybody just idolizes the grind that people
Yeah.
and I don't know how, if you actually think about it, I don't know how many people work that much and then become successful, but when they do, that's what like people talk about. Like, oh, they work for 100 hours a week, 7 days a week for 4 years, and then they're a billionaire or whatever. And you're like, okay, but now that I'm out of that bubble, it's like, well, did they actually? Because they should be dead.
Right. I
Well,
mean,
like,
because
what
there's
do you
like
mean?
consequences to your health, right? But also, like, all of the science tells us that you make worse decisions and are less creative and do worse work when you are working those kind of hours. So, like,
Well,
there is nothing that backs this up except for
no, all
our
the research says you
culture.
should work 4 days.
Exactly.
They keep I think it's Microsoft is and another company, they're changing. Of course, they're not testing it here, they're testing it in, like,
Getting a
Japan,
startup.
but they did a 4-day work week, and they're like, "Yeah, productivity went up 23% or something like that."
Yes.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, so, like, actually, all the science says that the people who somehow grind that hard and make it, they are very much the exception. They are
Very much the exceptions.
everybody else, and which is true because we don't talk about anybody else that
Right.
burned out and quit.
Well, because we have like we have this, badge of honor around the work that is really ingrained from, this American puritanical work ethic thing. And we think
Yes.
that it means that, if I say, oh, I want to build a firm where we only work 4 days a week, and not that I want everyone to work 10-hour days, but I want people to work 8-hour days, 4 days a week, and that's it. And then not be on their phone, checking emails or anything like that. They're completely disconnected offline, taking care of their personal lives, restoring themselves outside of that. And then people are like, oh, that sounds lazy. And so, especially in,
Yes.
entrepreneurship circles.
Yeah. Oh, yes, so the shaming if you
Oh, yeah.
don't work more than
Right.
60.
Yeah.
And despite all the actual research, anytime anybody does real research, they're like, "Yeah, no, actually, not sleeping
Right.
does not help you."
Does not help you at all. Like, there are so many times that in previous business that there were challenges that, like, we would have been facing for years, and then in the periods where I actually took time off and stepped away, then it was just like, bam, I had the idea, could fix the problem because, like, your brain, in order to process ideas and put things together, like, it needs downtime, and I was never giving my brain any downtime.
Well, and it's funny because you use the word downtime, but it's not.
That's right.
That's the part that, like, we
That's
have
true.
that language so ingrained, we're like, "Oh, it's
Mhm.
downtime." Like, well, but you wake up with a better idea tomorrow, so is it?
Yeah.
Is it downtime or is it just different productivity?
That's a good point. That's a good point. Because I am, yeah,
That's what I mean, like, we're so ingrained
unequivocally
into it.
more productive and more, or maybe I should use the word effective. I am definitely more effective when I am not
Yes.
working
Yes.
excessively.
Yeah, that's probably a better word for it. Productive feels more like you're producing something constantly.
Yeah. And I want to kind of like you said about the word choice there. We want to be intentional about the word choice.
We have to be
And
so careful with all these ingrained words.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we have essentially like been culturally indoctrinated for our entire lives to,
Yes.
yeah, do do
Well,
these
yeah,
things.
it's and I think you bringing up the production word, like, that is, like, what we culture, like, well, you're working to produce. So if you're not
Right.
producing something visible, what are you doing? You're lazy.
Yeah. Right. And lazy is the worst thing you could be, apparently.
Right. Relaxing is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I look at friends in Europe and it's like, they're not living like
And no, as the French still have a country.
Yeah,
They're working on kicking their president out, but they still have a country.
exactly. I mean, but the fact even that they're working on kicking their president out, people have the ability to be more politically engaged when
Yeah,
they're
they
not.
get to be more engaged in general.
Yeah.
In what they want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have friends in Norway and a few other countries, and we always have this conversation about, they're like, oh well, we have like 6 weeks of vacation standard, and we have like
Yeah.
24 national holidays, and we also take personal time, and we
Yeah.
stop working for the weekend. And we
Yeah.
don't, work from home does not mean work 7 days a week. It means
Right.
I happen to be at home and then I turn it off and tell my boss goodbye. Not the case here.
No, I remember the first time I went to Latin America on business, and for my mind, seemed lackadaisical approach to showing up to things on time and like the world didn't fall apart. And I was just like, my brain just was going ballistic, like, what is happening? Why is everything operating this way? Because there are a lot of ways for things to operate better that we are just not used to, and they work, and they have worked for centuries. But we
They
just have a
do.
lot of deconditioning to do
Yeah,
before we can fully accept that sometimes.
I have a friend from Hawaii, and so it's always great to talk about, interfacing, because in Hawaii, local Hawaiians actually they have two times. They have island time and then they have white people time. I forget their actual name for it, but basically it means white person time. And they're like, yeah. So when they talk, they're like, oh, is it Hawaiian time? Which basically like it'll happen when it happens. Like, no, don't kill yourself if you got stuff to
Yeah,
do. Like we'll meet up at this time ish. Like whatever. Like we
right.
will meet up. Like we're not worried that if we're not there at 4 o'clock exactly, we're gonna
That we will
miss
be
each other.
judged
And
because we are
yeah,
irresponsible and
be judged or like I feel like it kind of ties with like we almost like a FOMO kind of thing, like, "Oh, if we don't show up at 4, then
yeah,
we're gonna miss something somehow." And their culture
right.
is more like, "It'll be great when we meet," and this is like just head like, we'll if it's at 4, great. If it's at 4:30, also great. Like,
Right.
we're gonna be great. And that just kind of that mental attitude is their culture hasn't fallen apart. They still have food, like, no one's dying because they didn't show up at 4. So it's just this very and I think Hawaii is this great place because it exists with both of those time
Mhm.
mentalities, and it's just such a contrast when you go there and you especially if you're with someone who's local and they're like, "Yeah, this is are we operating on your time, or are
Right.
we gonna do, like, what actually is nice?" Like
Yeah. So I know people are listening to this and, you are now operating on this 4-day work week. You take a full month off every year and you don't work weekends unless you want to. So clearly we've established that's a pretty radical position for an American company. But I know our listeners are going to want to know the tactical reality here. Like, how did you build a business model that actually supports that lifestyle? And because, other
it's so
business
much
owners are like, that
easier
sounds
than everybody
incredible, but
thinks. It's so much easier. It honestly is so much easier than people think because you just do it. You set the boundaries. So occasionally I will respond to clients on Fridays, but it's only in something like today I responded to a client because we're scheduling a meeting for Monday. Like, okay,
okay.
that I will do. Like I'm not gonna stop next week from being productive by skipping an email today and making next week harder on myself. But I'm also not going to fill my day with meetings. And so we have pretty clear expectations. And, I think one of the things is people like to have, I feel like this is also very American. They're like, you're either doing it or you're not. And like this whole there's a rainbow. It's gonna change. Like, the black and white isn't real. That's so as you were saying, some puritanical stuff. It's not
Yeah,
real though. It's a
it's not.
construct. So like starting with knowing on a Friday you may end up working, but the reason you're doing it isn't because you've convinced yourself you have to always, is because there's a deadline coming up or an emergency has happened. Like, yeah, there are 7 days to the week. Stuff happens. And sometimes you're going to have to take care of fires. Like, it doesn't, fire start at any time that doesn't matter. Problems appear at a time. And if you have to deal with it, deal with it. But really, from like a company standpoint, it's it's gonna sound really stupid, but it is just as simple as going, "Well, you're not working Friday. You're working
Yeah.
we work Monday through Thursday. We will start like, the goal right here is 8 hours. Yeah, sometimes you might do 10, sometimes you might work on Friday, but if you start with this framework of, "These are the hours, this is
Mhm.
the work we're gonna be doing, this is" you tell your clients, you tell your like, and honestly, like, nobody I have not had anyone complain about not getting an email on Friday or not having meeting, like, no one, because realistically, like, if you actually work in corporate, what you realize is nobody does very much on Fridays anyway. The only people demanding stuff is high up people who are like, "We're having a team meeting on," so you show up to the team meeting, and then you go mess around most of Friday, and then you go home. That is like that's what the reason why those studies are like productivity is up. What they're measuring is productivity per work week. And of course it goes up because you're
Yeah.
not paying for 8 hours of people hating to be there.
So you mentioned the boundaries part of this, and I think that that part is critical because there are some clients who expect, 24/7 availability. They want responses to everything right now. And I
Yes.
know for us, we, are just realizing that there is a values misalignment. And so those might not be the clients for us. But how have you communicated this to clients? And did you start with a 4-hour work week when you started the new firm, or did you implement that later on?
I didn't start with it
Okay.
because I when I launched it, it was kind of just myself. And I had one other person working with me. And so I was kind of forced into working whenever I could rather than a set schedule because we had just had a new baby, and
Oh,
so
yeah, that'll do it.
benefit I was at home, so I was able to help a lot, but that also meant that, like, I worked at night, sometimes I worked on the weekend, like, I just worked whenever, and so I had never locked into, like, here's the set magical schedule, and then as it grew, it was just kind of realizing, okay, well, I can't how do I prevent myself? Like, what are the boundaries I can
Mhm.
put up that help make sure that I don't end up creeping? Because there were points where I started to creep back into
Yeah.
this default of, oh, well, 60, 70, and I would hit that, and then my lovely wife would help remind me that that is not my health will suffer, and so, it's figuring out those boundaries and putting those in place basically to keep myself from just automatically overdoing it,
Yeah.
because that's how ingrained, especially having worked in it for 3 years straight,
Right.
it's 3 weeks to make a habit. 3 years, that's an ingrained rut.
Right.
It is beyond habit at that point. You don't even realize that you're not thinking about it. It just
Right.
happens. So that kind of helped form how we did it. And that's where we started to implement 3-day weekends. Like, okay, well, Friday through Sunday now that those are no work unless there's, if there's an emergency, if, and kind of the way I've categorized that as well, if they're paying and it's going to make future easier, then I'll do work because it's
Yeah.
there's some sort of benefit beyond just the money. But But honestly, like we haven't really had, even on clients, we haven't really had any pushback because I've always been there. If really needed, I will
Hmm.
show up. I don't ignore really important things on a Friday, but I do try to take care of anything on Thursday. And realistically, most people, when they say, even if they send off something on a Friday, if you respond on a Monday, I haven't had anybody complain about the only time I've had a client complain was because I used an automated, and this is more of a work remote kind of thing, which I will say, don't work remote. Don't tell people, don't use an autoresponder to say when you're not in office because it will,
Mm.
people that is the only time that I had, because I tried to let people know, like, because if I'm traveling and stuff, it's a little bit harder to
Right.
respond. So I was like, I'll just use this, I'm still working, but traveling, and just have
Yeah.
like a responder like, hey, traveling, I might be a little bit slower. And I had one client who took that as I'm not working. And so he like quit. He was like, oh, we're done. Because you don't have time to work with me. You're constantly on vacation. Like, it's an automatic responder, but it is not a vacation. Like, yes, I have
Yeah.
taken some vacations this year, but if you think that I'm bad because of that, like, we're not. We're
Yeah.
not in alignment.
So
I'm
it
gonna
values,
take
yeah.
because I knew he was taking vacations too, more than me. So I'm like,
The audacity.
do you expect me to just grind free? Like, is that because you're not paying enough? Like,
No.
you're not
And that's
paid
usually the
anywhere
case.
enough to work this hard for you. Like, I'm getting everything done. Everything is happening as it's supposed to be. I just happen to not have my butt in this seat, which we're not even, we were on different, I think he was maybe East Coast or something. So it's like, we're not close to each other to start with. Like,
Right.
you
You're
didn't
going to be
hire me
working
for an
differently most
in-office
of the
job.
time.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I'm still showing up to our meetings. Like, so anyway, don't use autoresponders. Just disappear or not, whatever. Don't tell, that's the only thing that I've had kind of bite me, which was odd. Nobody
Yeah.
else, no, nobody else complained, but you never know. You never know what people
True.
think or about stuff until you get an email.
That's very
I
true.
think it was
Well,
mostly written by AI too. So that was like an extra, wow, okay.
yeah, that's bizarre. But, like you
It
said,
happens.
not values aligned, so not really a loss. And
Yeah.
so you did talk a little bit about how you implemented this as you were kind of growing the company to put guardrails. So what kind of impact has it had on team culture and your ability to attract talent? The fact that you have this 4-day work week.
It's been good. We have, even because I do this even for our contractors. I
Oh,
tell them like, oh, well, we're not available on the weekend. Like, don't, whenever possible. And occasionally, we have rush work. So, it happens. But we've had the same core group of people now most like 5, 6 years. So we
that's
have a
interesting.
very low turnover rate.
Yeah.
Our team loves working together. The culture, and I think it's one of those things. Culture is super, super important, and people don't.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, we just need, we need. There's also this mentality of we need 40 hours a week. You're like, well, you need stuff done, and so as because I worked in corporate and know how much all that stuff sucks. The way I've really set it up is we have what we need to do. Yes, we need to
Mhm.
estimate hours because we have to bill. We
Right.
have, I got to track somewhere and make sure that I'm actually paying everybody correctly and I'm
Right.
charging enough to pay everyone correctly. But the hour tracking is really just from that, which project are we billing
Yeah.
for? Like that's it. But really the standpoint is we want to work 4 days a week and the focus is to get the project done. Like, we're going to set up the deadlines together and we're going to make sure. So I also really make sure that, I'm just not just telling a client, oh, we'll get it done by this date. And then have the team go, well, we have to work 7 days a week to make that happen. So
Mhm.
it's very much okay, well, Thank you, client. I will come back to you. All right.
Yes.
When can we have this done? When is reasonable? Is it worth like we have other projects? Is it worth we're working over a weekend for this one? No, we're not going to tell the client. Like that's the other thing. Like if we do work over the weekend, we're not telling the client. It's something
Yeah.
that we opt to do, but publicly we will never say our official hours are Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
And that also really helps to make sure because sometimes we're able to speed up a delivery. Like, oh, we need to help this client. They're in a rough spot. We got to
Yeah.
speed through. Are we willing to? And make
Yeah.
that a question and not a you're working this weekend. Because I've also done that where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
Saturday you're here. Wait, this is Thursday. You're telling me I have to be here Saturday now? I have
And that's so
plans.
crucial. It's so crucial. The fact that you, like most emergencies, can be avoided with proper planning. And that was one of the things that used to
Yes.
kill me in corporate. Like, you did not have to say yes to this client on this timeline. Like, this is entirely a manufactured crisis. Like, the fact that we're all here at 3 o'clock in the morning was so unnecessary, especially because we're going to get it to the client by this date you agreed at, and they're not going to look at it
Right.
until
Yes.
like 2 days
Yes.
before the federal deadline. So, like, what are we doing?
Well, so when I was younger, I worked with as a summer job. I worked for one of our neighbors doing landscaping, and so one of the bid things that he would do that I love and I use now, and I'm perfectly fine everyone knowing this. If it's a rush job, and or super pain in the butt person, like whatever, like
Mhm.
you're like, we got to do this now. What he would do is he'd be like, "Absolutely, I can do it," and he would charge 10 times the normal price. Like, if it is such an emergency, yeah, I
Yeah.
will drop everything. We will show up. It's gonna be 10 times the normal price.
Yep.
And basically, it was a well, either it's a real emergency, so you're willing to pay, in which case
Yeah.
we'll figure out how to make all of our other work go, and we'll make it happen, or
It's
not
not.
really an emergency, and the next availability is in 3 weeks. What do you
Yes.
which which is this? And,
Right.
and basically his attitude was like, "Well, even if they find somebody else, like, I feel sorry for that person because they 'cause they're gonna ruin their day for not enough money, but I'm not going to." And he was like, "I've been doing this forever." Like, "No,
I love that.
it's not worth it." Like, if
Yeah.
it's an emergency, charge like it's an emergency, and you'll quickly find out whether it's a real emergency or as you're saying, this
Yeah.
manufactured emergency. We'll find out. Like that's
Yeah.
the
And it
test.
won't be the end of the world.
And not that you have to be
I
turned around
promise.
every time, but you got to charge more. You got to charge like it's an
Yeah.
emergency. And I think our normal is like 3x, which we're open about. We're like, it's gonna be 3x. If it's an emergency, 3x.
So I love that. And I hope that people take that away, that you do need to charge more for emergencies. But I want to dig into pricing a little bit more because one of the shifts that you've talked about in the past is that you had to learn how to price your design services in a way that actually reflects the value that you're creating. And
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about what went into that, especially because, at your last firm, you said you had kind of the constraints because of your target audience. How did you avoid making that same mistake when building your new firm?
Yeah, so kind of there's a couple ways that we address that. One is we diversified. So yes, I do work with startups because I love there's so many cool ideas that people have. But we limit that to about 20 to 30% of our
Mhm.
overall sales. So whatever it's looking like, we keep that to a small percentage. That way we can still help people,
Yeah.
but we need to have funds to keep running. And so diversifying that has been huge. We work mostly, I would say the split is probably mostly mid-size and businesses, funded startups. We know they have the capital to really, really go forward with everything. And then, we still work some with enterprise on a if it's a good fit, we'll come in and
Mhm.
we'll help it on enterprise level. And then there's that small little stack of startups that we work with. So diversifying was a huge piece.
That's key.
Um, and then also just kind of realizing there's a lot of ways to go about bidding and pricing and kind of learning what people actually do
Mhm.
was interesting because a lot of companies that work with startups and having been in that field for so long, the way they work is they will tell you a bid that's nice and small, and then it's death by a
Mhm.
thousand cuts. And they just slowly add in because when you do product development, there's no way to get to a first prototype without spending at least 20 or $30,000.
Yeah.
But most people in the startup world are scared of that. Even if they do have
Yeah.
it, like their commitment, this could be their first large purchase outside of a car. And
Right.
most of the time they finance that, right? Over 5 to 7 years, they
Right.
finance that. Um, I haven't gotten into the financing world yet. So maybe at some point I'll figure out how to finance product development like that. Um, but that means it's a big commitment. And so what I found out is a lot of the invent help is we would get people from a lot of these invent help. I won't say names, but if you Google it, you'll see the names. Where they've kind of just been slowly bled out. And so,
Mhm.
unfortunately there's not much we can do for them at that point because there's no resources. Um, but that was one of the things that we decided on pricing. Like we're much more upfront. So
Yeah.
we'll tell people like, okay, yeah, you're gonna be looking at 30K plus minimum, like just out of the
Mhm.
gate. It doesn't matter what idea you pitch me, that's the minimum starting point. And then the other thing that we did was move to a lot of people don't do enough research. And it's not because, they don't actually even know what to research. So it's not dissing anyone. If you haven't done it before, if you haven't gone through launching a product, you haven't done all the research before. So you don't
Yeah.
even know what you're missing. That'd be like
Right.
asking somebody to randomly diagnose a car problem who's never done anything
Right.
on a car. Like, no, you don't know, and it's okay. So we do what we call our discovery process, where we start, and that's always a fixed price. And we go, okay, well, we're going to do all the research. We're going to make sure that you can actually launch the product. We're going to make sure you can actually, there's no uh, patent things and nothing blocking you. And we'll
Right.
give you a couple directions. And that has worked really well because it's a smaller number. Those started like 5 grand, and it's giving you the professional opinion of like, hey, is your idea good? Can you actually make money off of it? Those kinds of things,
Mhm.
and that kind of pricing amount. And then from there, like we'll have done enough research into the project to go, okay, well, here's how much it'll cost to develop it. We
Yeah.
actually can tell you with some certainty what that is. And so we really try to do that as much as possible to create as much certainty, even if it's breaking it by phases. And so
Mhm.
that's something that we've learned over time. Like I used to bid kind of the how other people bid, which even big design companies will do. Oh, well, it's going to cost you, it could be a really big number, but they'll do like this
Yeah.
whole project. I'm like, well, working with people, unless it's a really big corporation that's like, oh, well, this product has to meet these things. We've already dumped $50,000 into research. We've already spent all this money and time researching, and we know
Yeah.
exactly what we want. We're like, okay, well, we can make that. Most companies, even small, medium companies, they don't do that. And so by addressing that first, we're able to help figure out what that path is,
Yeah.
and create certainty. Because otherwise, launching a product and a brand is a very uncertain thing if you've never done it before. It
Yeah.
is jumping off the building hoping you have a parachute. So we recognize
I
how
love that you're
scary it
kind of
is.
like bucking the industry convention here in terms of like the process that you're taking and doing things that are in the best interest of the client while also not doing things that, actively harm you and the business that you are building.
Yeah, and I'd say about pricing too, and other people might run into this. Like we've had people that will say no. They're like, oh
Yeah.
no, because we got this offer over here. We're just gonna go over there. And so we still have, we don't win every project
Right.
against how these helping companies operate, because it is a very attractive, oh well, it's only $1,000 for this.
Yeah.
But then like 12 of those later, you find out that their project is not actually
Get you
viable,
where you need to go. Right.
where we could do it for less up. So it's very, we when you do pricing like that, if you aren't following a convention, you won't always win people, because people will go with what's comfortable, or
Mm-hmm.
what gets advertised to them the most is not always quote unquote the winning strategy, but
Yeah.
it's better for everyone. And it means that we
Yeah.
know that people are, for us, is also a commitment of like, okay, do you actually have the resources to start? Because if $5,000, $10,000 is too scary, you're not gonna like what comes after that. Like, you're not gonna be
Right.
ready to do it. And so we don't want to. I've worked in building 2 businesses. I've worked with a lot of people that just never made it past the first couple stages. And that's a huge frustration for me, because I wanna when I design something, like, I want us to go out. Like, this is, I'm
Yeah.
designing it because it's awesome. Let's get it to the market. And so just kind of learning to you have to really make sure somebody's actually ready to go all the way
Yeah.
through the process. And one of those kind of two-way filters is, well, if you're not willing to start with this research, you're not, one, you're not ready, and two, you don't even know. Like, you don't actually even have the information to
Right.
know if you should go further. Like, this is ultimately, you have to do this work. You have to do the diagnostics before you start doing anything else.
I love that you call that a two-way filter, because we're realizing that some of the things that happen when, someone is not the right fit, and because, we make certain choices and are giving people the full picture up front, very similar to how, what you're doing, and it's like, this is the full cost of doing this work. And yet we could sugarcoat it and try to bring you in with a lower price point and then, upsell you on the back end, or have, surprise bills that come up later. But when you tell people that up front, that you will lose some people, but that I love the double filter idea, because it is filtering those people out because they're not a good fit, they're not ready to move forward, but it's also protecting you.
Yeah. Well, and it's customer satisfaction. Like, this is one of the ways I relate this to people is I ask them about if they've ever done a remodel. Like, is
Mhm.
anybody happy with the remodel bills? Because that's what it's that same kind of mentality of, well, here's the bid. Oh, well, now here's an extra bill and an extra bill and an extra bill.
Yeah.
And I was like, suddenly you're halfway through, but your house is in pieces. So you kind of have to keep going. And
Right.
now you're stuck. Because your bathroom wall is open to the outside.
Right.
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna keep paying the bill. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes the
No.
hostage bill negotiation, and so that's why we just refuse to do that. It's
Yeah.
not, and I started, and the other thing we learned is that fixed. I tried at first to address that by doing some fixed number, like, okay, well, it'll be exactly this much, and we'll do the work. And what we realized quickly is that there's just too many variables to it,
Yeah.
right? It can change a lot. And especially if you're a first time inventor or a small
Yeah.
business, like, you're going to have a lot of ideas. And so we ended up having to stifle a lot of creativity, because we're like, well, budget, we can only do this much. Like,
Right.
we're going to lose so much money if we do all this. And so we'd have to kill so many good ideas to
Yeah.
try to shove it through one packaged tiny budget. And so that's why we do kind of this phased base where it's, all right, let's do the work. Let's take a look at it. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do
Yeah.
next? And then we can tell you like what that will cost. But let's keep the creativity going into it. Let's not stifle that, because there's nothing worse than having to not have as cool of a product, because
Right.
you're trapped into this little tiny window, and you're like, well, but this other thing, we just found this thing over here that would be perfect. It would make this 10 times better. So yeah, I just don't like that kind of kind of work.
Yeah. And as you're kind of talking through this, it's making me think about the fact that your team also has to be in alignment with this approach? And as you are, and I know you mentioned quite a few people have been with you a while, but how do you either hire for values alignment or build and coach for values alignment so that the entire team is on the same page when it comes to decisions like this?
Yeah. So, at the beginning, there's not really anybody else but yourself. That was just talking to people. Like I'm a very I probably don't interview in a way HR people would. Well, I know I don't. It's all very conversational. Like if you listen to a podcast, that's how I interview people. It's a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you can't hold a conversation, probably not a good fit. Because we get to talk together a lot.
Right.
Um, and then the other thing is like really one making sure that everybody's on the same page. So talking to everyone, even if it's, and I don't make everybody do one-on-ones constantly because those are super annoying. Nobody actually likes those. So it's more of like every few months, at least twice a year, just sit down, have a conversation. It's not a and not a it's a review and your money is dependent on this.
Mhm.
I do raises separately. They're not
Okay.
I really don't even talk to people about it. It's just like, "Oh, you're doing really well. It's time for, here you go. Here's your raise. Congratulations." Like it's not a I don't like tying it to did I talk to my boss well today and today and the next 30 minutes will determine whether I get a raise even though I've worked really well for 95%, and so building the culture that way and then also like we've brought on people, I'll ask my team first if we're trying to bring someone on. I'll say, okay, well, we need somebody that does this. Who do you know? Do you know someone who's available even for contract work? We'll
Yeah.
try to be much more word of mouth, and we'll still, I'll still do rounds, but I'll have my team be like, here, I've recorded all the interviews. What do you think? To like
Yeah.
look at their resume. So it's I don't think I've been the sole decision maker for probably 5 years now. I've always like once I had a little team, like we decide who is going to be a good fit on,
Yeah.
technical, but also like, do you guys like this person? Or you're gonna be working with them. So
I think
I mean
that
I
goes
have
a long
two, but
way.
still.
Yeah. Having the team involved, and as you were describing that, it reminded me of, something I read, that you said that you try to be intentional about not, creating a pressure culture with your team, and, so one of the things that I know as, small business owners that are listening to this, can you talk a little bit about how you balance, kind of maintaining high standards and delivering excellent work without burning people out?
This is also gonna sound stupid simple, but it's really set deadlines for the work with the team, make sure that they're
Mhm.
actually okay with it. To realize deadlines are going to change. If you're like, especially with what we do, like we could be one project, we could have the reason why people hire us, we could have 10 to 15 vendors producing different parts or different
Yeah.
things for us that we're taking in. We can't control them. What we do is we set realistic goals and targets, and then we're very clear with our clients. We go, hey, we're going to aim for this, and we'll update you if anything changes. We're going to be on it. Like there's no delay. And
Yeah.
so that kind of removes, rather than going to the team and be like, you have to have this by this date, or we're all fired, or you're
Yeah.
fired, right? I mean, I've had that kind of stuff before. Like, well, I can't control 5 companies. If they have a problem, I can't. What do you want me to do? Fly over there, or do their work for them? Like,
Right.
we're hiring them because they can do it, not me. Otherwise, we would be doing it right now. So, realizing that yes, hard dates are good, but sometimes things have to be flexible. Life
Yeah.
happens. Also, like I don't have. It's taken a while for some of the team to get used to it, but like when people ask, like, "Oh, can I have some? I have a doctor's appointment." We're like, "Yeah, go." Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, it does not like, "Oh, I need to be home with my family." Like, our team has been together so long, like, we've had grandparents pass and we've had
Yes.
babies, and they're like I was like, "No, I don't. Number 1, your family is first. We're
Right.
just work. Like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
work family, whatever. Like we know each other. We've been together for a long time. Great. But yeah, your babies are more important than me.
Yeah.
So real like as a startup person, like whatever you have is never should never be more important than somebody else's baby or
Right.
taking care of their grandparents or their spouse. Like that has to be first because
Yeah.
otherwise they're gonna quit. They're gonna resent you pay them enough that they just hate you while they get paid, or they're gonna quit. So that's something that like I'm always go take care of that. If the date slips a day, I'm just gonna tell the client, like, we had, personal matter came up, team had to be out, we're a day late. And
Yeah.
kind of being okay, being I'm the buffer, particularly in it
Mhm.
us being service based, I'm the buffer. I go,
Right.
obviously I am trying to get them like, hey, sometimes we're like, well, they're a really big company, and if we miss this date, they have attorneys
Yeah.
and they have an unlimited budget. Like we cannot like sometimes we do have some of those days where like we cannot. So how do we
Yeah.
but then it's working with them and go, okay, if you're not available, do you have a friend who can we contract them right now? I'll contract
Yeah.
for a week to like what do we need to do so that the company doesn't get absolutely obliterated by something,
Right.
but it's like, catching those things early and going,
Yeah. It's a problem solving, collaborative approach. Like right
yes,
now, I have a
collaborative.
team member that is in Jamaica and the island was just devastated by a hurricane. When she knew the hurricane was coming, reached out to another team member and said, it's likely I might lose electricity, I might lose power.
I might be out for a
Yeah.
while.
And so then we're like, absolutely fine. Keep your family safe, keep us updated when you're able to keep us updated. We can shift the load. Like we can communicate that, we can pull in other resources. But yeah, there's so many, it's interesting to me, and you've said it a couple times that the answer feels really simple or really stupid. And yeah, sometimes it just boils down to like just be a good person and don't
It
manufacture
does.
emergencies out of things that don't need to be problems.
Yeah, and I think it's, also if you're willing to hire someone, you should trust them enough to be able to solve problems. And that's
Right.
like in especially what I do, like we're hired to solve problems. Like the
Yes.
whole point we exist is to solve somebody's problem of how do I get a brand and a product to market. If
Right.
we can't figure it out, it's a problem.
Right.
Like we have a
Exactly.
real problem right now because we are the experts. So like it's also, one of the biggest things that I think entrepreneurs struggle with is letting go and delegating.
Yeah.
And if you are unwilling, and this is actually even applies to the clients that we work with that are startups, especially if it's their first time, where if you're not willing to let us take over as the professionals and
Right.
step in, we're not a fit.
Yeah.
Like if you have to sit on my shoulder while I do the work, you are not ready to
Right.
run a business. Like you are not actually, you
Yeah.
should like this is developing the product's the first step to launching a company. And if you can't delegate now, oh
Right.
boy,
It's gonna be a
I
problem.
have some news for you. You're gonna need a team of people.
Right.
So if you feel like you have to sit on the shoulder of your employees or your contractors, go find a coach or something. Like do whatever you need.
Right.
You have to let go of that now because having been the designer who had, my one of my first jobs, there were the engineers that were really like, go do it. Here you go. Let me know if you need help. And then there was people who were like, I'm gonna sit literally pull my chair up next to you while you're 3D modeling this stuff to tell you every 30 seconds, oh, I need that, and I need that. I'm like, I know I'm a kid, but I do know how to use this software. Like, this is not the end their engineers are fine. I deliver their stuff and they're happy. Like, go talk. But so you gotta let go and you gotta if you're not comfortable with a person, don't hire them or let
Right.
them go. Like it's a if you're normally able to let people just work and you can't with one person, sit down and talk to them
Yeah.
and or let them go. Move on. Like and that's I
Yeah.
have tried to keep people on before and I've learned that if you try to keep people on that aren't a great fit, you're just you're going to burn your own team out. Whatever other team you have, they're going to be like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
they're clearly not a fit. Why are you putting all your time and energy into them? You're ignoring us. Kind of like that kind of thing starts to pop up, and no, you're not going to get stuff done. If you're busy, if you spend all your time micromanaging, you're supposed to be working on the business, not
Doesn't even serve
micro.
that person well. Because
Right. Well,
to
it's
be
clearly not a good fit for them either.
right. And so giving them the freedom to go do something else that is a better fit is also in their best interest. And so I think that we're because I'm just looking at the time and we haven't even touched on the sustainability aspect of your business. So I feel like we're just gonna have to have you back on because
Let's do it.
we just
I know we
did a
covered
deep
so
dive
much.
in conscious leadership and pricing, and which has been absolutely phenomenal. But then there's this whole other, side of the purpose-driven nature of your business. And for people who are listening, if they have a product in mind, I know that they can, head over to your LinkedIn and you have a button there that they can hit a consult. But what are the other ways that people can find you and keep up with your work?
So I'm easy to find. You can go to petermanfirm.com. That's the main company's website. You can also go to ianpeterman.com. I have that domain. And to the sustainability side and the podcast, so that's Conscious Design House, HAUS.com. You can check out podcasts, the book, which we'll talk about next time. And yeah, just any way I'm available, like you said, LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect on there. Social media, I'm kind of everywhere. If you look up Ian Peterman Design,
Oh, I want to
I
be like
am
you
the
when I
first
grow
page
up.
of Google.
I need to.
So
My director of brand strategy keeps telling me that I need to do all the things that you just said. So she's going to be
it's
very
it takes
pleased
time.
that she's listening
It's
to
taking
this.
me time though. So
Yeah. So, this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. We found so many surprising things in common. And yeah, it's just been so refreshing to hear from someone who made that hard choice despite all of the odds and all of the conditioning to say, this is not working. I'm going to do things differently. And that you have been able to be successful in building a values aligned business that, you're making more money, you have a better quality of life, you have a strong team. And so, for everyone that is listening, if this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the Purpose Profit Shift wherever you get your podcast, and join us next time as we continue exploring what's possible when business becomes a force for justice, sustainability, and profit. And remember that business isn't just about what you build, it's about who you become in the process and who you bring along with you. Until next time, keep shifting.